Also, another thing to note about the All-Star game with this format that's going to be really pivotal moving forward to the excitement and the effort that's given with the players. I'm sorry. If it's my team, ain't no way in hell ain't somebody else is beating me for MVP. So if I'm, let's say next year, Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are the leading vote getters, right? And they're the ones who are, putting together the roster and everything. I'm not gonna, if I'm Russell Westbrook, I'm not letting Kyrie Irving being MVP for my team. So yeah, we get the victories. Team Steph wins, or sorry, Team Westbrook wins, but at the same time, Kyrie Irving wins MVP. No. I'm gonna play hard. I'm gonna make sure not only am I setting the tone, my effort, but I'm getting my shots up too. And I'm getting my buckets. But the thing is, it makes you now play strategically because you want to be MVP and have your numbers. But at the same time, you need to win. So you need to play in a way that's team-oriented to beat another really good team on the other side. So again, it involves more strategy, more pride. There's a point of emphasis in really wanting to win MVP because goddamn, like I don't want somebody else to win MVP on my team that has my name attached to the team. Hell no, that ain't happening. Especially if it's somebody in the same position. How stupid would that look if Kevin Durant has his own team next year and LeBron James wins MVP for Team Kevin Durant? That's the goofiest thing I'll ever see. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, dude, I'm carrying your team. And we all know these players, they have too much goddamn ego. There's a lot of players on that team. There's a lot of players on just the floor. It doesn't matter what all-star game is. It is. When you are an all-star, you have clout within your franchise. You're probably the best player on your team or one of the best players. The franchise caters to you. So you come in with that ego, an all-star game, and you want to let people know, hey, listen, I'm not in the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to the best players in the league, and I think that's one thing with this format. Not only because your name is attached to it, not only because with your name being attached to it, you want to be MVP. It's also these players, these are your peers picking who should go first, who should be selected first on your team and who's going to be last. So it's like you're auditioning for next year, So if I'm LaMarcus Aldridge, I'm thinking because he was picked last, him and Al Horford were picked last, I'm thinking I'm going to play better this year because if I'm an all-star next year, y'all ain't picking me last. And some of these other guys like Giannis didn't have that great of a game. And I think I'm pretty sure, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, he was a really high pick. So, I mean, I don't know. Team Kevin Durant next year could look at what Giannis did and say, you know what, I don't know if he's really that good in the all-star format because he can't shoot. You know what, I'm probably not going to pick him till later. And, whoever's going against Kevin, because Kevin Durant's going to probably be the leading vote getter next year. Because LeBron and Steph are automatically disqualified because I think you can't have two players be, you can't have them be the leading vote getters and the assembly, you can't have them be the captains of the rosters 2 years in a row. So it's going to be Kevin Durant and somebody else. I don't know who that somebody else is going to be, but Kevin Durant's going to be looking at this like, you know what? Yeah, that Andre Drummond guy, he didn't really do much, or Jimmy Butler, he didn't play. What was up with Jimmy Butler? Why didn't he at least, I already got sick, or he was partying too hard. He was out here in these streets chasing white girls. That's what he was doing. But I digress. Nonetheless, all I'm saying is, Jimmy could have came out for 5 minutes. You got voted as an all-star. You could play, run up and down the court. I'm not sure why he didn't, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. I don't think he would have made that big of an impact anyways, especially since his mind wasn't in it. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I like Jimmy Butler, but, if you don't want to play, you don't want to play. All right, but that's enough of the All-Star game because, it was a great game, but in the grand scheme of things, it really means nothing. So if you're LeBron James, you win All-Star Game MVP, I think it's bragging rights, but it has absolutely nothing to do with his legacy whatsoever. What does have something to do with his legacy is winning championships. And we're in the final stretch of the 2018 season. And there are some things that you really want to look out for from the East and the West. I'll start with the East. Um, you really want to see what Toronto is about because apparently, to be honest with you, I haven't watched a lot of Toronto games. They're really never even on TV. What's up with that? You got the Lakers and Lonzo Ball on TV 30 times, but you don't have Toronto on TV at all. But yeah, I don't really know what's better about that team. They pretty much have the same team in which they did last year. I heard Ibaka's having a good year and DeRozan's having an MVP caliber type of season, but um, as a LeBron fan, I can tell you right now, I am not worried about the Toronto Raptors, but I will be on the lookout for them. I might add them to my League Pass account that I have, and I might start watching a couple games to see kind of like what's improved about that team. But the thing is, I think Kyle Lowry isn't really playing that well. So I don't know really how they can be that much better, at least for the playoffs, if Kyle Lowry isn't the Kyle Lowry that he was. Like, he's not having his best year statistically. I know DeRozan probably is, but it's not Kyle. So I just don't know how that's going to work. But I'm going to be on the lookout for them and see if they can actually get over the hump psychologically, in the playoffs and show some more fortitude against LeBron. Also, Boston. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Gordon Hayward comes back. Don't really think it matters because the guy's going to be rusty as hell. I was of the mindset of thinking like Gordon Hayward's a nice player. He's a good player, but I think Gordon Hayward on a championship team is a number 3. I don't think he's a number 2. And I'm not sure. He would clearly be number 2 with Kyrie there. And that's just not enough to beat this LeBron team. I don't think it's enough to even beat Toronto, to be honest with you, especially with him being injured. But with Boston, I'm going to want to see if Jason Tatum can get back to what he was a little bit earlier in the year because he has really dropped off and hit that rookie wall. And, also with Jaylen Brown, he needs to be more consistent. It's his second year. I actually think he's better of the two, but he needs to really step up and assert himself as that second most impactful player. He needs to be I think Jaylen Brown needs to be better than Al Horford. Al Horford needs to be the third best player on that team because Al Horford's not a number 2, especially at this point in his career. So I'm going to look to the young guys and really see what they can do. I'm not worried about Kyrie because Kyrie is money. He's going to do what he does as long as he's healthy. On the West, a lot of people are not talking about Oklahoma City. And I'm telling you, I saw Oklahoma City play against Golden State twice this year, and they dismantled them. And it wasn't just like they came out with a lot of energy and, we just kind of fell by the wayside. Like, Golden State would try to make runs, and I think Oklahoma City did a really good job of neutralizing those runs defensively with their length. That's where I think they really hurt Golden State, defensively. Now, the most underrated injury of the NBA is Andre Roberson's injury. Now, a lot of players a lot of people who listen and, kind of follow the NBA intuitively know that Roberson is pretty much, he's a liability offensively. But with that team, they don't need any more offense. You can afford to have a liability offensively when you have that much firepower. He is such a good defender, especially as it pertains to guarding stars like James Harden, Kevin Durant, LeBron. Well, LeBron kind of has his way against him, but he doesn't play him much. But nonetheless, those stars in the West, Kawhi Leonard, Andre Roberson does a really good job. And it really helps someone like Paul George and all these other guys in, kind of catching their wind, not having to guard the best player at every possession, and also just having another long, lanky, good defensive body that can switch on pick and rolls. And also he offensively, he moves without the ball well. He kind of has like a, poor man's Rajon Rondo knock for the ball where, back in his Boston Celtics days, Rondo would just kind of get that offensive rebound and do that scoop layup and, just always have his nose around the ball, get that big steal, that loose ball. He has that, in his offensive repertoire, which is enough given the fact that he's not a good shooter, but he's a great defender. It's a very underrated injury, but nonetheless, I don't think they could beat Golden State, but I think psychologically they can give them a lot to handle before they get to Houston. Now, speaking of Houston, I'm not as gung ho on Houston as everybody else is, specifically because, well, for two reasons. The number one reason is I hate their late game offense. It is Chris Paul and James Harden, and they dribble through their legs 19 times, and they either shoot a fadeaway or hope somebody's open in the corner for them to shoot a three. That is literally their offense with 3 minutes left, with the game being slowed down. Capella is also kind of in the mix with that pick and roll a little bit, but their offense, I think, is so predictable. And if you're going to have a really predictable offense, you have to have dynamic stars, i.e. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, to beat a team like Golden State. You just have to be that special individually. And honestly, I don't think both of them are. I think Chris Paul at one point was in his career, but I mean, I saw them play Golden State. Chris Paul couldn't even get past Jordan Bell. You know, outside of, Zaza Pachulia, Chris Paul is somebody, he's kind of like a fadeaway jump shooter now. He dribbles a lot, eats up clock, when the pace is slowed down, and he kind of just shoots a lot of bad shots. James Harden is in his prime, and he's incredible, but I don't know. Psychologically, he has this thing where he just blacks out. And you saw it yesterday in the All-Star game. Where the hell was James Harden? Mr. MVP, most valuable player of the year, Mr. Triple-Double. It's Mr. 60-point triple-double. The guy was awful yesterday. He was 2 for 13 from the field. Completely. He just looked out of it. He looked like that was a time where, and not the Western Conference, Team Steph was deferring to James Harden, say, hey, you're the best player, take us home. And he couldn't. And it wasn't even close. It didn't even seem like he was even trying that hard. So James Harden has those mental breakdowns late in really important games, especially in the postseason, against good teams, where he just completely plays like another player. And I saw that against Golden State as well. I think the last game in which they played, I think they won by a very slim margin. James Harden was put on lock. And a lot of times, if you really pay attention to those games, Kevin Durant's length bothers him. It bothers a lot of players, number one. But it really bothers James Harden on the perimeter. And Durant's going to take on the challenge of trying to guard, James Harden. So I'm just not that gung-ho on Houston unless they're out here just blowing out Golden State. And I just don't see that happening. Secondly, their defense. I just don't think their defense is good enough. I think they're a better defensive team, but I just don't think they have enough length. I don't think even they have the length, the roster, and the coach, and the culture to be able to withstand the onslaught of the offensive attack of Golden State for 7 games. But I just don't see it. Those are the two reasons why I just don't believe in Houston like everybody else does. Chris Paul, I just don't think he's as impactful. And here's another thing. You got to understand, Houston's winning a lot of games. They look really good. But there's a lot of bad teams in the NBA. You're playing the Clippers. You're playing the Blazers aren't that good of a team. You're playing the Nuggets. You're playing... to be honest with you, Nuggets, they're not that good of a team. They're much better than they have been in years past. The Nuggets, I think, match up very well with OKC. I mean, not OKC, Golden State, because they spread the floor and they're physical. And they kind of have, their guards are similar to Lillard and McCollum. They're fearless. They shoot threes. They get up and down. And I think offensively, for long periods of time, they can match up with Golden State. I don't think they have the late game star power, but throughout a 46-minute span within a game, I think they can really keep up with Golden State. So, Denver is a team to look out for, to kind of potentially beat up a Golden State. But I will say this, Houston needs to win that 1 seed. Houston must win that 1 seed, because if they win that 1 seed, I think that will give them the edge, the mental edge to now come into a series and know not only do we have our first 2 games in Houston, we have that last game in Houston. So I think that gives them mental edge. And I do really think they're hungry. I don't think that'll be enough. But if they're going to beat Golden State in a 7 game series, and they're going to have home court. I don't care what anybody says. So Golden State and Cleveland are still the favorites in their respective conferences. Um, I'm really going to be interested in seeing how, with Cleveland, who's going to be that number two? Are they going to have a number two stabilized scorer? I don't know. Is it going to be by committee? Personally, I think it's going to be Jordan Clarkson. The guy is fearless. I think Rodney Hood's a better. I think he's better skilled offensively, but I think mentally he has games where he checks out. I can see times when the moment can be too big. He more so wants to fall back and be a role player. Jordan Clarkson wants to be Kyrie Irving. Make no question about it. He comes in the game off the bench and he tells himself he's Uncle Drew squared. So I think it's going to be Jordan Clarkson. I'm really excited to see who pans out to be that number two guy. If there is going to be a number two guy, or is it going to be a guy by committee? I think Cleveland needs a number two guy, a number two go-to guy who is fearless and can get buckets in the clutch, to help LeBron. Because again, he's more naturally a passer. He's gonna make the right play. We need somebody who can come in and just kind of take bad shots in late stages of the game fearlessly. And I think that's Jordan Clarkson's role. I think for Golden State, what I'm really gonna be interested in seeing is, can they really motivate themselves to really be the best team in the NBA, not necessarily record wise, but just from a playing standpoint. Can they be the best team in the NBA at the end of the season? Because I can tell you right now, teams aren't scared of that. They're not scared of them anymore. I remember when they were playing OKC, Paul George looked KD dead in the eye, gave him a pat, step back, smacked the three. You guys know what I'm talking about. And he ran down the court and he was pumping his chest and yelling. He's not scared of Kevin Durant. I think what really helped Golden State the last couple of years is that teams will come and play really motivated basketball early in games, but when Golden State would do their crazy runs, teams would just be like, all right, we're not going to beat them. We just got to pack it in. That's not the case anymore. Teams are coming in really strong, and they're matching Golden State's runs with their own. They're learning the tendencies of Steph, Clay, Durant. There's just less fear there. So I think it's going to be really important for Golden State, not necessarily to win the number one seed in the West. That would be great if they did. But to basically, when you play Houston again, don't just beat them, annihilate them. Let them know, yo, guys, no. If you thought for a second y'all was going to fuck with us, think again. It ain't happening. Because our stars are just better than yours, and our brand of basketball is just better than yours. So that's what they need to do. I don't know if they're going to do it. I think they're still going to struggle mentally. I think it's fatigue. I think it's also just the fact that the league is kind of catching up to their style and their roster. And teams are just better equipped or better built to play against a Golden State, because Golden State, they were leap years ahead of their competition for so long. So, but yeah, those are the things to look out for. And, last thing, because I had somebody talk to me the other day about Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't have a chance at all. They just don't play defense. Offensively, they're a really good team, but two issues with Minnesota. Number one, they just don't play defense. That's really the biggest issue. But secondly, I don't know whose team it is. I don't know if it's Jimmy Butler's team. I don't know if it's Cat's team. Wiggins is kind of like, kind of picks his spots here and there. I just don't know offensively the identity of where they're going to go, what they're going to do when they need a big bucket, when they need somebody to take over. I think Minnesota is about a year away, so we'll see. But there you have it. That's my take, and let me know what you think. Holla at your boy, hit them comments below, and let me know. All right, guys. Did it stop recording? Oh shit.